Thank you, Chairman Thune, Ranking Member Schatz, and members of the committee. Thank you for having me. 30 years ago, a bipartisan group of visionary leaders came together to create Lifeline, to connect people to the essential communication service of the day, the telephone. The program has created opportunity for millions of Americans, including me. I was on Lifeline for a short while after I was laid off from my teaching job. My Lifeline connection ensured that I had a reliable phone number on my resume and that I was able to communicate with the law school admissions and financial aid offices at the school that I ultimately attended. Last year, the FCC modernized Lifeline for the digital age, recognizing that broadband helps people to meet their basic needs. Its 2016 order adopted reforms, building on those it enacted in 2012 to curb waste, fraud, and abuse. Modernizing Lifeline for broadband is critical for poor people and people of color who are more likely to be on the wrong side of the digital divide and who cite cost as a major adoption barrier. Lifeline is the only federal program poised to increase broadband adoption and provide a pathway out of poverty for millions of Americans. In May, the Voices for Internet Freedom Coalition, of which Free Press is a founding member, hosted a public forum in Skid Row to hear from Los Angelinos about why communications access matters. I promised to bring their stories to Washington. Susan explained that she had to track down an internet connection even to find a homeless shelter. Marco shared that the internet allows him to access mental health services. Lourdes, a senior citizen and caregiver, told us that she struggles to afford a mobile connection but needs it to find work. Takui said that without Lifeline, she wouldn't be able to afford phone service, which she has used to access emergency services and other healthcare needs. Fifth grade teacher Melissa said parents shouldn't have to choose between internet access and food for their families. LA residents are not alone in needing these supports. I can't help but wonder how many in Houston have used their Lifeline connections to call for help and access vital emergency information in the face of Hurricane Harvey, and how many more Puerto Ricans and Floridians will do the same with Hurricane Irma. We must protect Lifeline to ensure that everyone has access to information and emergency services in times like these. When talking about Lifeline, we hear a lot about waste, fraud, and abuse, but this narrative is often overblown and frankly offensive. There's a tendency to wage war on the poor, to demonize and assume the worst about Lifeline recipients. And I cannot sit here today, especially as white supremacy is on the rise around the country and in the White House, without directly confronting the racist undertones of these assumptions. We should avoid inflated stories of waste, fraud, and abuse at the expense of poor people and people of color who rely on Lifeline to meet basic needs. We should not allow this narrative to excuse the FCC's new leadership, which is stalling implementation of the 2016 order. The FCC's foot dragging is stranding over 17,000 recipients who had already started receiving service and denying potential service to countless others. Nor should we tolerate the sensationalized narrative surrounding the 2017 GAO report. The outdated report's findings are an old snapshot of a program already modernized and improved several times over. The investigation period predates implementation of much of the FCC's 2012 and nearly all of its 2016 reforms to address waste, fraud, and abuse. Indeed, as GAO states in the report, the FCC's planned national verifier may address many of the issues we identified if it is fully implemented by the current planned date of 2019. And according to the FCC, it's on track to do just that. Our first priority should be expedient implementation of the 2016 order. We should reject radical measures, such as moving USF funds to the U.S. Treasury to offset other national debts, as the FCC chair's office evidently suggested to the GAO. This could undermine all USF programs, including Lifeline and others designed to connect rural Americans, schools, and libraries. As I read about how people stranded by hurricanes are using their cell phones as literal lifelines, I am reminded that yes, we should strive towards a prudent program, but we also must ensure that everyone has access. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. González.